I'm Laurie Pawlik-Kienlen, author of Growing Forward When You Can't Go Back. This is chapter 3 in my Read Along with Laurie experiment. Unplanned and unpredictable storms blow through our lives, often dictated by other people's decisions, random circumstances, and tragic accidents. No warning or explanation. Sometimes they feel endless and destructive. The blossom tips woven throughout this chapter and Hagar's life, as well as my life, show us how to flourish through it all. Surprised by the season. Growing up, I knew only a few things about my father. His name was John. He lived with his wife and children in Israel, and he was Jewish. And he loved to eat, especially fish. He introduced my mom to halva, a rich Middle Eastern dessert. I didn't officially meet him until I went to Jerusalem when I was 29 years old. Born and raised near the Old City in Jerusalem, my father traveled to Vancouver when he was about 25 in the late 60s. I was born in 1970. He had a purpose: to earn money, return to Israel, and buy a tire shop. He didn't plan on meeting my Christian mom or getting her pregnant, nor did he plan on abandoning a baby girl in Canada or keeping us a secret from his family. My mom didn't plan on the seasons she faced either. She never thought she'd live in a home for unwed mothers, pregnant and alone. She didn't plan on meeting and marrying a different man, having another daughter, my half-sister, or getting divorced after 3 years. She didn't plan on raising 2 girls as a single mom, nor did she plan on living with nervous breakdowns and paranoid schizophrenia for the rest of her life. And I never planned on spending my childhood moving in and out of foster homes, living on welfare, getting groceries from food banks, wandering from city to city and school to school. I couldn't wait to grow up so I could live on my own. When my stormy childhood season finally ended, I was happier than I dreamed possible. That's the good news about bad seasons. They end. New season, new identity. Growing up without a dad had an appalling effect on my self-identity. Worse was living with a mentally ill mom who called me names, punished me physically, and yelled at me in public. Band-aids everywhere, inside and out. I struggled to hide my shame and pain from friends, fellow students, and teachers. Believing they were perfect and happy, I envied their lives. I fluttered on the fringes of school activities and daily life, trying not to be seen. Somewhere along the way, I adopted a rather distasteful identity: worthless, unlovable, and bad. I based my self-image on my circumstances and family history, feeling inferior and alone. I kept people at a distance and hid behind walls of superiority and self-righteousness. I judged and condemned others to protect myself, often treating people like they were inferior or stupid, all to avoid feeling bad about myself. Acting haughty and condescending was a coping strategy that helped me survive childhood. Unfortunately, it was not a smart approach to adulthood. I ruined several relationships before realizing that people don't like being treated like fools. So I learned how to be friendly and cooperative, but I still felt worthless and unlovable. Slowly, I realized my self-image was based on external factors: family background, body size and shape, income, education, job title, achievements. What I needed was a more meaningful source of identity. I needed a new purpose, a new heart. Running away from home. I ran away from home when I was 13 years old in a most unusual way, by calling social services and talking to a social worker. My previous foster care experiences hadn't just sheltered me, they taught me how to properly leave an unhealthy, abusive environment. I'd stayed in foster homes with compassionate parents, warm beds, well-stocked fridges, and school supplies. I'd already experienced and wasn't eager to relive the adventure of sleeping in hard cardboard boxes in cold back alleys of big cities. At home, my mom was disintegrating physically, emotionally, and mentally. She kept going on and off her medications because she didn't like the uncomfortable and often harsh side effects of the powerful antipsychotic drugs. She was also trying to hold down a teaching job while raising 2 preteen girls as a single mom. Her struggle led to all sorts of unpleasant experiences at home, ranging from physical abuse with wooden sticks to culinary abuse with margarine sandwiches on stale white bread. I couldn't live with her anymore, especially since she was getting better at hiding her illness from the doctors. So I called a social worker for help. I knew there was always the possibility of ending up in an unhelpful or even an abusive foster home. I'd heard they existed, but I knew that staying with my downward spiraling mom was riskier than running away. No going back. Calling social services when my mom was sick was risky. I didn't know if they would grant my request and put me in foster care or leave me with her. They wouldn't remove me if they thought I was exaggerating or lying about her illness. And if they left me at home, life would get worse. My mom was already furious that I'd called for help. There'd be consequences for calling a social worker, and I'd be the one to pay. The social worker did a home assessment a couple of days after I called, and he removed me and my sister that evening. I wanted and needed to leave my mom, but it was hard. I felt guilty for calling social services and terrible that she'd be alone. I loved her. Living with her wasn't bad all the time, but she was too sick to take care of us. There was no going back. I had to keep moving forward and trusting that everything would be okay. At the time, I didn't have a close personal relationship with God, though I believed in Him because I was caught up in day-to-day survival. I didn't understand the concept of walking with God through scary valleys and dark nights. I loved going to church, but I thought God was neutral about me. I knew He wouldn't object to my presence, but I didn't think He desired or sought it. He could take me or leave me. I never realized that God actually saw and cared about me. Fainting away. Calling social services when I was 13 was a risk that paid off. It was hard to leave my mom, but I landed in a safe place. I didn't reach out for professional help again until I was 30, and that experience was so scary that I passed out cold. When I was teaching in Kenya, my school offered free counseling services for staff. Since I'd never talked to a counselor before and figured that I had a few issues to iron out, I thought, why not? I fainted and fell to the floor the morning of my first appointment. I'd been standing at the back of the library during morning staff devotions at the school I taught at. Dan, the math teacher, was closing our time in prayer. Suddenly, the room shifted and darkness started to fall. The floor rose and smacked me on the side of the face. Someone said, "Laurie fainted." Dan didn't miss a beat. He smoothly transitioned into a prayer for me and my health. I opened my eyes to see a circle of faces staring down at me. Thinking it was just a coincidence, I didn't mention it to my counselor, Nancy, right away. When I finally told her, she said the decision to work through painful past experiences has a powerful effect on our bodies and minds. Talking to a counselor awakens spiritual and emotional forces that can create massive shifts in our psyches and lives. Fainting was my body's way of coping with anxiety and fear of the unknown. It's risky to move forward, but it's riskier to stay stuck in the bud. Growing forward. Your future may contain unpredictable, even frightening seasons of change and growth. But your future, growing forward. Your future may contain unpredictable, even frightening seasons of change and growth. But you can make your way through the falling leaves, broken branches, and crashing trees. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 3, and I look forward to sharing Chapter 4 with you. Take good care of yourself, because you are worth taking good care of.